Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. Is this another Marvel's Avengers game? The answer is simply no. You see, a lot of times gamers will conflate different game styles with other games that they probably have been traumatized by, and I wanted to try my best to make sure that we are as technically correct as we possibly can be. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League is not like Marvel Avengers. It is not like Gotham Knights. I still see these people making these comparisons, and I'm here to just tell you to throw all that out of the window. If you don't like a game, at least know why you don't like the game. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League is a shooter. Therefore, if you're going to judge the game, you have to judge it in light of other shooters that actually have comparable mechanics or at least claim to offer what games within its category have already offered in the past. Today, I'm going to show you guys one game that actually has done in a much detailed, much greater level what Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League is trying to achieve. I'll also give you timelines to show that there's no way that Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League was being developed in order to mimic Marvel's Avengers. That would have been impossible because the way both games have actually released within the same 3-year window and needing multiple years of iteration prototyping, it's almost improbable that both games were trying to follow one another. They were actually trying to follow another live service game that really did bring some of these mechanics to the market and really impressed a lot of executives as to how well it sold. Now, most of us in the superhero genre, video games, or the ones that like action adventure games, we probably are not necessarily in tune with games like these, but here's Tom Clancy's The Division 1. This is a game that came out in 2016. The more likely and more probable copy, I would say mechanism that Suicide Squad was wanting to implement in its game. This is an RPG looter shooter, a third-person RPG looter shooter. One that has all the things that you're, in a sense, I don't know, for some of you, having these harrowing thoughts about when you see Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The game, actually, in my opinion, will be the game that Suicide Squad will be comparable to whenever we actually get into things in regard to mechanics, in regard to things like stats, in regard to things like attributes, even talents that exist on your weapons, and even those stats that exist on your gear to the minimal, most intricate aspect in terms of even mods and so on and so forth. You see, the developers were saying a lot of things yesterday in their Suicide Squad presentation, but it seemed like a lot of people were not necessarily paying attention overall. I'm seeing a lot of the dislike bombing going on here. And again, this is one of those things where you really have to call gamers and say, hey, gamers, I know we want to dislike the game, but let's dislike exactly what it is we know we're disliking rather than dislike something for the wrong reasons. And I'm not here to tell you to buy Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League or not. You can do whatever the heck it is you want. It's your money, but I would love for you to know exactly what it is you hate if that is in fact the reason why you're actually dislike bombing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. If I jump any further into this, I saw a post from one of my audience members on one of my YouTube channels, and they said to me, hey man, this game is getting dislike bombed, and it seems like it's coming from a place where many people don't necessarily know that this game was not aiming for your traditional Arkham experience, or nor was it aiming for your Spider-Man experience. And I went and I looked and they showed me a picture, and even if you come to IGN and you're able to use the plugin that gives you the dislikes, you see that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has got 13,000 dislikes to 6,600 dislikes. If you look on the GameSpot presentation, which is just basically the same thing, it's about 5,100 to 1,200. You go and look at, say, another one here on the DC page, you see it's 2,100 compared to 1,500. The dislike bombs are coming in heavy, so let's actually see if this game, if you look at it from the perspective of a shooter, a third-person shooter with live service elements, is actually that bad. And the answer to that is, would have to play the game, see the way the mechanics work, and eventually have a better comparable analysis with all of the intricacies. But let's do a preliminary in this video for the sake of it, because a lot of times in the whole gaming space, people are going to run around and jump on all kinds of tropes because, for the most part, nobody really wants to do the homework nor do the research. So if you look very carefully here at Captain Boomerang, you're going to see his loadout having all kinds of different statistics, gear score, things with damage, critical hit damage, capacity of magazine, rate of fire, all of these different, intricacies. Now, how is Avengers going to have copied something like this when Avengers is not even a shooter? That's where the biggest thing is in my mind, in a sense, kind of a weird conspiracy when people continue to say that would have been, in a sense, clairvoyant of both games to have developed basically the same thing when this is not the case. In retrospect, if you wanted to actually get a better comparison, the Division will actually give you that specific level, of similarity. You have RPM damage numbers, you have your weapon talent, you also have little crits that come and little, stats. I call them crits and all kinds of things that come on your mods. And if you actually put together a build, the builds actually go with specific themes. So this is a build called Predator's Mark, where you use 6 pieces of a specific gear set to actually build a specific set of effects, bleed on enemies whenever you fire them up to 10 bullets. Remember yesterday, the developers mentioned something along the lines of, if you're playing the game, say, you're able to get your hands on some of the, gear that's available within the game, you can actually apply specific effects to enemy NPCs. Example that they actually showed was one of Bane's gear sets, where you actually get a buff, and the buff allows for you to be able to do some, damage of some kind or some buff to enemy NPCs. This is what they were going for, trying to copy the Division, and seeing how the Division was a 2016 game, it makes a whole lot of sense that they were trying to find a way to go ahead and do this. Now, one more piece of evidence to actually go ahead and complete this puzzle before people start saying, well, how do you know? Well, it's not rocket science. If you've been looking at the news and paying very close attention to what's been going on within Warner Brothers Gaming, you will realize that within their ranks, there is someone who is in charge of the 11 gaming studios. His name is David Haddad. There's an article from Axios that cites a specific conversation that this particular executive had. And the conversation was about profitability and so on and so forth. Also, this executive is known to have wanted at some point to move a lot of their DC games towards a live service, games as a service model, in order for him to be able to get their, market to, in a sense, tap into the audience that Ubisoft had already tapped into. Now, why follow Ubisoft? The answer is very simple. Tom Clancy's The Division 1 was Ubisoft's fastest selling game. I guarantee you, if this game had the Destiny budget, it would have probably been the biggest thing that we had seen in the shooter category. It just did not have that Destiny budget, so it could not necessarily compete, nor could it resonate with many people. But don't be fooled, it sold a bunch of copies. In fact, it sold so many copies that at the onset of the game, the developers were dragged aside 3 weeks after the first game released to start making the sequel. That's how well the game did. For your bosses to tell you literally 20-something days after your game releases, go start working on a sequel, that's when you know that you've struck almost gold. And the mechanics in this game are quite pristine. There's so many things that you can do, like I was showing you when you compare it to a Suicide Squad game. So I guess we're going to have to do that comparative analysis based on all the elements that games like The Division, which they're not necessarily too many, bring to the table. The world building, the talents, the weapons, the way things are actually done, and so on and so forth. And here's what I think a lot of people are probably expressing more than anything else. They're just expressing their dismay at not being able to get a superhero game in the traditional sense. Rather, they're getting this game that is a shooter that is going to be pursuing the live service element. I can definitely understand that. But that doesn't mean that you're going to basically just go ahead and throw the game out, because a lot of people seem to be acting with this surprise Pikachu face like, huh? It's a shooter? Guys, we knew it was a shooter like 2 years ago when they showed the game to everybody. I wonder why all these content creators are coming out here saying, well, I hope the game is going to be good. Can somebody please tell these fools to move aside and let's just talk about what exactly the game is? I think it's come to a point of almost frustration for me, but one of my audience members asked me to make this video, so I'm trying to honor that request, and I'm really trying to not suffer these fools, but my gosh, they pretend so much. They've all known that this is pretty much what the game was going to be about. They just all sat there going, well, we hope, Whereas people like us in the communities that actually are following the superhero genre of video games, we already knew, we already said it, and yes, we took flack from a lot of pretentious gamers who tried to make it seem like we were crazy. But I'm gonna calm down. That was a little bit of a rant within this entire video. I hope you've been able to kind of gain or glean something as to, exactly the nature of this game, exactly where all this is coming from. This is, in your own opinion, yes, truly not the, in quote, rock steady but this is the Warner Brothers that you still know. They still want to be profitable, they still want to make money, and they will force their IPs into this monetization system as much as they possibly can. Some games already fall into this category or can actually be monetized easily, like Mortal Kombat, their multiverses games, or maybe there's single player games that would require for them to make DLC. But if you're looking for that single player experience, I think I need to point you to Monolith, who's working on a Wonder Woman game. Hopefully they don't go Middle-earth Shadow of War that game and add some store at the end of it, and they don't make that same silly mistake again. I know you forgot about the Middle-earth Shadow of War store, right? I mean, you want to guess when that actually came into play? In 2017, about a year after this executive who wants to monetize these Warner Brother IPs took the reins. So there's much that needs to be broken down, and I wish I could have all the time in the world to do it in one video, but I have a series of other videos where I've actually taken the time to break a lot of this stuff down. If you're interested, you'll pay attention. Rather than hitting the dislike button, I think just, educate yourself a little bit about what's going on. It will really help you to know whether you're going to buy this game or not. I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. You really have to be a looter shooter player. Someone like me, I think I have a lot of that looter shooter tolerance because live service games are not easy. It's not easy for the developers. It's not easy for the players. And if you were wondering, my Division hours are actually more than a few thousand in terms of how much I've played overall in this IP and, in even the prequels and so on and so forth. And in regard to videos that I've made concerning these, I think I've clocked almost 3,000 videos overall. So I think I've had enough pedigree and enough experience to be able to talk about this stuff at this point and be able to see Suicide Squad kill the Justice League for exactly what it is, which is pretty much one of these types of games, but on a light level. Because I tell you, Warner Bros. Doesn't want to put in the work and the investment to actually develop a Division-esque style game. It will require a lot. This, in my opinion, is a much lighter version. That's just going to appeal to the superhero community, maybe to kind of test the grounds and see if it's going to be something that is acceptable. And I guess sales and audience reception is really going to be the final thing that judges if people will actually play this stuff or not. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for your audience. I appreciate you guys a lot. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Peace out.